everyone, and welcome to our next in our webinar series from Toastmasters District 3. For those of you just joining us for the first time, this is a lunch and learn series that we've been doing all year long, and we wanted to continue that as we wind down to the end of our year this year. At this point, I would love to introduce our speaker. Hope everybody's ready. Sara Mayer is the owner and creator of Sara Mayer Consulting, and she is your go-to expert on organizing your hectic days, weeks, months into manageable and functional chunks of work. Through her work as a champion for multiple philanthropies in Arizona and her commitment to building the capacity of the community, Sara has personally mastered maximizing every minute of every day to ensure she meets the expectations that are set before her. Upon her mastery, she began consulting and speaking both locally and nationally with others in similar positions. Sara's clients have gained tools to help them close their laptops at the end of the day, each knowing they've accomplished everything on their task list. That'd be something to do. I would love to be able to do that. Sara is also a Distinguished Toastmaster, or what's commonly known in Toastmasters as a DTM. She is a former Palo Verde Division Director and this year's District Chief Judge. She has received numerous awards, including the prestigious Sandra Day O'Connor Community Service Award, and she is a founding member of the Joyride Society and served on the Association of Junior Leagues International Governments Committee. Today, her presentation will be about passenger rules on leadership journeys. Now, the most difficult leadership role is the role of the passenger on a leadership journey. Leaders have defined and cleared their role. They know exactly what they're supposed to do, but passengers intended to support the leader and are often left on their own to determine the rules of the road. This becomes one of the most difficult leadership roles to navigate. What are these rules of the road when you're asked by a leader to support them? In this session, Sara will explore with you how to support others as they lead. Again, the topic of her discussion is passenger rules on leadership journeys. Please help me welcome to the stage, Sara Mayer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sara Mayer, and I'm super excited to be talking with you today all about the leadership journey. So are you ready to jump in the car and go on a road trip? Because if so, I have the passenger manual for how to make the most out of your road trip with another leader leading and driving on the road. So let's jump in. Many times you are going to be tapped by another leader to go on a journey with them, a road trip for the ages, to a place where you may not even know where you're going when you're recruited. Great leaders love to reach back and tap other people to join them on the journey. And great leaders also like to reach forward and bring people along for the ride. So if you are asked as to be a passenger in a leader's road trip, know that that is a tremendous honor and one that you can cherish forever. But it's not always easy to be a passenger, especially when you're used to driving. I don't know about you, but I don't like the backseat drivers. Yeah, and we also don't like the backseat passengers that kick the seat or are constantly trying to change direction, or maybe they want to stop 5 minutes after you just stopped the car. I know when I was growing up, my dad used to always say, "Be quiet," or "I'm going to pull this car over." And we always wondered what would happen if that car was actually pulled over. Many of you have been on a journey. So let's talk about the journey and the road trip in leadership and how to be the best passenger when a leader does invite you on a journey to a destination of achieving a goal. One of the biggest things to remember is great leaders influence and support others to achieve a common goal. And their real responsibility is to chart the course to where the team will be going. They might not have all the answers, but as the leader, they are responsible for ensuring that there is a plan and that you do get to the final destination. They also are responsible for recruiting their fellow passengers in the journey to join them in the car or bus or vehicle to ensure that they have the right people in the right seats. And that's often the first task that when a leader is asked to do something or chair something or become a part of a committee and lead a certain component, often the first things they will do is think about who do they need on that trip. And that may be you. Great leaders, as I mentioned, reach ahead and grab people who are really skilled at certain things, and they reach behind and pull people up to give them experiences. So know that if you are recruited, there is a reason that you are on that team and on that road trip. And finally, great leaders show the way. They may do things, they may not do things, but they're always there to show the way, to ensure that the team gets to the final destination. And once they're ready to hit the road, all leaders have different driving styles. I know you've been in a car with somebody who pumps the brakes, or somebody who maybe hugs the right side, or maybe they are very cautious and stop at the stop sign and actually count to 6. Every driver, every leader is different. And before you get in the car and join a leader on a road trip, you want to stop and think about the fact that they may lead differently than you do. They may drive that car a little bit differently. They most likely are going to communicate in a different way than you may communicate, or they may in a similar way. They also may inspire people differently. They may give lengthy speeches or send short notes or do private praise. Whatever, they may be doing it differently. They also likely delegate in a different style. And all of this is okay. When you jump on board with a new driver, take a moment and look at the differences in how they drive, how they lead, how they communicate, inspire, and delegate to get everyone to that final destination. Many times it will be different than how you lead, but it's in these differences that we truly are able to come alive as a team. And every team, everybody on the bus or car or whatever you're driving may have a different role, but everyone is there for a reason. And as they jump onto this road trip, that group dynamic will be different every single time, even if the destination is the same. You know, you've been on a road trip with other people, I'm sure, in your life, where one time it's the singing crew, the next time it's the silent riders. Every road trip is different, and leaders truly have a tremendous responsibility to put together the best team of people to achieve that goal and reach that final destination. Now, I know you're probably thinking about a road trip that you have been on, or maybe one that you're planning, i.e., a leadership activity that you're taking on. So as a leader, really think about who is going to be in the car with you before you recruit those team members. Okay, now let's talk about the passenger road rules. As you know, many, many times, the driver has a plan, but it's really the passengers that have what I would say is the most difficult role, especially if you're a passenger that has driven the bus or car before. You know, many times newer leaders are underage and haven't had the opportunity to drive. So they may not have the full experience of driving or what should happen or not happen on that project. But they have been in a car before, so they do know a thing or two. So if you are selected to be a passenger on a leader's journey, there are a couple ways that you can be a good passenger. And I do think that this is one of the most difficult roles. So the first thing is to know your role. Yep. Know your role. Know exactly why you were on that team. Know what your expectations are for that role. Are you the backup driver? Are you the leader who has experience that is going to mentor the driver and help them to be successful in their leadership role? Are you there to play the tunes? Are you there to read the map? Well, I guess now it would be on the phone. But what is your role? And it's really important that before you set out on that journey and that road trip to reach your destination, that you have a clear understanding of what your roles and responsibilities are. Because there's nothing worse than somebody who is not the backup driver asking every 5 minutes, can I drive? Or the person not responsible for the map saying, we should go this way. We should go this way. Or the person who's not the timekeeper saying, are we there yet? About 100 times. So know your role. Why are you on the team? What is your job on the team? And how can you best do that? The second one is understanding your expectations. Oftentimes, people will ask us to join their journey. They want us to be on their road trip to achieving their goal. And when you are asked as a passenger on this journey, it's a great time to say, why do you want me to take this journey with you? Why am I here? And again, back to what role will I be filling? Because many times the leader may have an idea in mind. It could be they want you to be the backup driver in case things go awry or the driver falls asleep and veers out of the lane. They want you to take charge if needed. Or it could be they want you to bring the fun, or they want you to recruit other people. Or maybe they have very specific duties they want you to accomplish, and you, without asking, would not know that. And you might veer out of your seat or your lane because you think you're there for one reason when actually the leader wanted you on that road trip for another reason. So it's really important when you are tapped for a leadership opportunity to understand your expectations and know very specifically what your role is. As I mentioned many times, the first thing that a leader is going to do is recruit their road trip participants, their team. And this is not always the easiest task. And great leaders, like I mentioned, reach ahead and reach behind to pull other people up and to seek the wisdom of leaders who have gone before them. And one of your roles as a passenger is to ask the leader, do you want me to recruit other people to bring along in the journey that I think can fill some of the roles and expectations and seats that you are looking to fill? And if the answer is yes, please recruit other people and bring them on board on the journey to achieve the goal for the team, because that is one of the best ways that you can light the torch and keep the journey going for other leaders. It's all about developing and inspiring others. Finally, your leader has a very difficult task. Not only are they driving, they have all these other people around them in the back seat, in the way back seat, trying to influence the trip. And as a passenger, remember your personal role and responsibility. And one of those roles and responsibilities is to follow the leader and to get to the final destination. So it's really important to stay seated instead of, flying behind and sticking your hands up or change seats or do other roles. It is so important to the success of not only the team, but the road trip. And many times, unintentionally, people end up taking back roads or detours that don't work out because the passengers simply are not staying in their seats. They're all trying to be the leader. When there's one person who has the map, there's 6 people with 6 different opinions on where to go. And it is really important as a team to work together. But when you are trying to be a great passenger, you want to stay in your seat. All right. So now that you know the rules of the road, please remember that this is supposed to be fun. When you take on a new leadership task or journey and you set out on a road trip with other leaders, make sure that you have somebody to turn up the music or who's in charge of the fun, because the ultimate goal for any road trip is to arrive safely at the destination. And you're not going to be safe if you're kicking the leader's seat and they constantly have to pull over and leave passengers on the side of the road. And part of getting to the final destination is not only accomplishing the goal, celebrating the goal, but bringing everybody along the way. And how you do that is by celebrating your leader, being a great passenger, and staying in your seat while they are able to stay in their lane. Leaders have a very difficult task, and many times people who have led other projects end up causing leaders to get off the road or go on to these dirt roads with lots of bumps unintentionally. So as a passenger, when you are invited to a road trip, remember, be a great passenger, because when you are a great passenger, your leader can be a great leader and you can get to that destination safely and quickly and celebrate the success of your team. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to my talk about how to be a great leader on a road trip. I hope that the next time you are selected to be a leader and be a passenger, that you really think about the road trip and how you want that trip to go from start to finish before you onboard passengers or before you agree to be a passenger. Know your roles, know your expectations, and really think about that journey. Have a great rest of your conference, everyone. Thank you so much. If you'd like to connect with me, again, my name is Sara Mayer, and you can find me on my website at saramayer.com. I would love to talk more about the leadership journeys that you all are taking as leaders, drivers, and passengers.
Sara, I don't know what to say. That was fantastic. And a lot of good, relevant things that we can patch into our lives from whatever we are. I have a couple of questions that have come in. I just wanted to banter with you a little bit on that.
Sure.
In relating to all of what you've discussed, which was, again, fantastic, there are some people that are just, for whatever reason, harder to work with than others. I tend to call them a hammer versus a guide. We realize that being in the car, it's not a democracy because you can't just lean in from the back seat and go, hey, go this way. So what happens if you run into someone that becomes a little more difficult to work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think as leaders, it really starts from selecting a good team and setting the expectations. I always think back to when I was a kid, when things were going awry in the back seat, like I was touching my brother or any of those things that were not allowed. My dad used to always say, if you do that one more time, I'm going to pull this car over and we'll have a little chat. And I think that's really important as a leader when things do start to go awry. People who are passengers, who are natural leaders, will start to take over if they think things are not going the way they should. And many times, and I've been guilty of this as well, so it's easy to do, many times people talk about the person rather than talk to the person. And I think it's really important to have those conversations where you pull the car over and you say, hey, I really appreciate you being on my team. I wanted you on my team for a reason. However, this is what's going on right now. And I need to rein it back in and really think about what your role is and how you can support the whole team. Because the other thing is, sometimes the people who are raising their hand and saying we should go this way, they have a valid point and they're looking out for the team. It's just maybe disruptive in the way it's being done. So I think it's really important to have those difficult conversations before you just veer off the road and go off-roading into unsafe territory. And then really setting a clear line as far as who will communicate the change in plans if there is one.
That makes total sense. Now, what happens if it's the leader that maybe has gone off their path? Everybody may know what they're supposed to do because that leader then has someone to work with as well, but they may be going off on their own path away from what their leader has suggested and has communicated to everyone. Have you seen anything like that happen?
Yeah, and I think this is a great time to remember that one of the best things that you can do is praise in public and criticize in private. And so that's a good time to say, hey, is there any way we can stop over on the side of the road? I need to use the restroom really quick and take a break, and then pull the leader aside, because ultimately you want the leader and the team to shine. And you want to make sure you arrive at your final destination safely and have a good time along the way. But I think it's really important to have that conversation one-on-one with the leader rather than at the back of the bus saying, well, we shouldn't be going this way, and this is the most terrible thing that we've ever done. And I've been involved in this for a long time, and we never went down this road. It just is disruptive to the entire team. And it goes back to being a good passenger. And sometimes being a good passenger, you have to trust that the leader may be taking you in a route that you've never gone before, and that's okay. But I think it goes back to being able to have those tough conversations and having them with the person, not about the person.
And I would say too, from that experience of working with you a little bit there in Toastmasters District 3, sometimes it helps us grow our own leadership to be uncomfortable and go trust that that road is not going to end in a cliff that takes you off. But if it does, you're still all going together. I haven't experienced that with you, and I don't think I will because of your leadership, but it could.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that, when we stay in our comfort zones, we can stay in our house all day long, but that doesn't grow or stretch anyone. Going on road trips or taking leadership journeys are supposed to be fun and exciting, but also meant to challenge and grow members and grow an organization, but they don't always work out. I mean, I've been on plenty of trips where my flights were canceled, or we got a flat tire, or we tried to go this way and it didn't go the way that we thought. But I think in the end, the trip was well worth it because we learned and we really stretched what we were doing. And so I think that's really important to remember as well. While it may be safe, they always say it may be safe to keep a ship on the dock, but that's not what a ship is for.
No, it's supposed to sail. And with that, if the passenger feels that for some reason the expectations were not clear or clearly defined, if they came up unexpectedly, changes happen. I mean, that's part of life. Or if those changes were added to them, which is still a change, but things of that nature, how is the best way, or what do you recommend it would be the best way to approach the leader to go, hey, obviously you don't want to give slap anybody. That's just not going to work. But how do you express that frustration and still keep it professional?
Yeah, I think that's really important too. A lot of the things that we're asked to do as leaders or as passengers are longer journeys. So it's not like, hey, we're going from here to here and it'll be a couple of hours. They're usually long road trips, a whole year of commitment. And a lot of things happen in life in a year. And so I think it's really important to, one, know your role, and then two, know as unexpected things come up, do I have the ability to say yes or no? And if so, articulate that then. But also having conversations with the leader and saying, hey, I know at the beginning of the year I got on this bus and I was excited to go to this destination, but life has happened and things have changed and I'm not able to fulfill my commitments, and I'd like to get off the bus, or I'd like to stay on the bus because I love everybody on the bus, but I need to move to a different seat, or I need a different role. And I think that's really important to communicate. Somebody said once to me that when somebody sets boundaries, it's not them trying to eliminate you or the activity from their life. It's them trying to keep you close to them and ensuring they can stay engaged. And so I think it's important as a leader to be receptive to that passenger's conversation, but also as a passenger to be willing to raise your hand and say, hey, I signed up to read the map and now I'm doing all these other things, instead of just moving to the back of the bus and complaining. And I think it really goes back to those conversations. And many times we simply don't have the conversations. We just move to the back of the bus, and some people notice and some people don't.
So then along like that same line, Sarah, should people then recruit more people than they think they need and keep them on a back burner? Is there, the number would depend on the position or the project, I would assume, but is there a point where you want to keep someone on the back burner just in case, or is that not good planning?
That's a great question. I think it's really important for leaders to really plan out their journey and trip and know that some people may be able to do something for a whole year and others may not. I think one of the things that I always say about recruiting a team is that you will always have people who you think are going to be superstars who are not, and people who you maybe didn't even think about being a superstar, and they may surprise you. So I think it's really important when recruiting a team to be thinking of two things. Who can I look to who has knowledge and wisdom about where we're trying to go and bring on board? And then who can I bring up that is looking to get experience? And that's what I would start with when building a team, because that's really where you'll build a diverse team. I think it's super important to ensure that you don't recruit people that are just like you, because while the trip may be easy, it's not going to take you to the most creative and best place you could be in, because they're going to be just like you. Should we go to the waterfall? Sure. And everybody wants to go to the waterfall.
You can't really have an argument with yourself. I mean, you could, but that wouldn't, that doesn't help grow anyone either. So that's a great point there. And if someone should get off the bus early, as a leader, you don't want to be caught unawares, which is why I had the previous question. So if someone does make that exit early, how does a leader, or how should a leader handle that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to celebrate that person's achievements or whatever they've done or accomplished so far, and also respect them, to allow them to get off the bus with respect. You don't push them out the back door. You don't do a rolling stop. It's really important to let them leave with grace, because I don't know about you, but asking for help is not something I ever like to do. So going to somebody and saying, hey, I really know I committed to this and I can't do it, is not easy. It is not easy to take that step initially. So allowing them the grace to exit quietly and to get off the bus and to have all their friends wave to them as they're leaving is important. And I think it's okay for people to self-select out if life happens, the journey isn't what they expected, or they're just not able to feel good about the commitment that they're able to make.
That makes sense too. And then of course you have to control what would be after effects of that, called the scuttlebutt or the snipping and the little gossiping, because that doesn't do much for morale either, I would think, at that point.
Yeah. I think it's really important as well to ask others, does anybody want to take this role? Is there anybody else that we could bring on the bus? Because I think many times we think of, especially in some of the organizations I'm in, like you have to be on the bus in July or you can't be on the bus. And the reality is that's not always true. If you think of a true road trip, some of the best movie road trips, they were picking up people left and right during the trip. And I think that's okay too, being flexible as a leader to bring people on that maybe you see could have the potential to take on the role next year or learn a lot along the journey. And just making sure that the passengers on the bus are welcoming, they're moving their stuff over so that they're allowing people into the car. They're not like, well, you have to walk because we have to put all our stuff in the seat. And so I think it's really important as a leader to remember that road trips and leadership journeys are ever evolving.
And that would include trying to bring someone along, even if they're what I would consider a straggler, because otherwise you're putting that responsibility either on the leader or on someone else on the team, and that person may be stretched also.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to remember that the goal is to get to the destination, and sometimes you're going to need to make changes or accommodations along the way, and you might have to let some things go. You may say at the beginning, we want to do these 5 things, but when you really get into doing those 5 things, it's not possible. So you may have to drop some activity from your road trip, but going back to pulling people who have experience from before and bringing people up, those people the next year can maybe integrate those things you weren't able to accomplish into the next journey.
Now, that brings up another question that I hadn't planned on. How important, when you have a bus and you need to make those adjustments or transitions, how important is that transition for the next team?
Oh, I think it's critical, because many times it's basically like changing a driver. You're not maybe going the same road, but you have experience from the past. You know that the car needs air in the tires, or the bus needs air in the tires every 100 couple miles, or you know that that back door doesn't stay latched, so you should check it. So I think it's really important. But I think what is also important to remember is that you cannot drive any vehicle by only looking in the rearview mirror. And so I think it's super important with the transition to remember that while your journey was one way, when you look at, that's all in the rearview mirror. And so the new driver needs to look at new frontiers, and they may be different, but you always learn from the past.
Right. So you don't want to stay focused on that rear, but you have to backward glance every so often, if I'm understanding you correctly. Yep. Otherwise, you could repeat the mistakes that may have been a catastrophe from the previous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going back to your cliff example, if you went down that dirt road once and it ended at a cliff and you had to backtrack all the way back out of there, there's no point in taking another group of people on that same journey.
That's true, because you'll get the same result. We don't want to kill anybody. We want to have fun.
Yeah. Yep.
Terrific. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. You did, in your recording, allude to your website. I'd like you to go ahead and then give us your contact information in case anyone has any questions and would like to reach out to you.
Yeah, certainly. So I like to keep everything simple. My website is saramayer.com, and my email is sarah.mayer@saramayer.com. Super easy.
Now, do you have any hashtags that go with that on your social platforms where people can learn more about this journey as you continue discussing it?
Yeah. So, if you want to talk more about leadership journey, you can follow me on Instagram, saramayer.com. Would love to have you share, your thoughts and your leadership journey. I'm always interested in hearing about everybody's goals and what they're accomplishing.
All right. Fantastic. Sara, I want to thank you for coming on to our Lunch and Learn today and giving us all this great information. We're in a little bit of a change in ourselves here in Toastmasters District 3, as you know, but this will help everybody as they get on their own bus to decide what direction they want to go in and how we encourage rather than sometimes pulling, but maybe not always pulling people into those positions. You always want to inspire and encourage and not yank if we can help it.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's really important as a leader to be comfortable with saying no. This isn't my journey this year. I'm not going on the road trip to the waterfall, but what I am comfortable with is doing this. And I think those conversations up front are really important for leaders and passengers to have.
Well, that's another question. If someone says no, do they feel if they do say no, that, that might take me out of the loop for the next journey that I really want to be on? Is that why sometimes people don't deny that?
Yeah, I think people have a difficult time saying no anyway. I have a whole podcast on this, but I don't say no anymore. I say, thanks for thinking of me. Do you know who would be really good at that? Or who's looking for an opportunity like this year, and I find somebody. And I think it's really important that you're continually connecting and being relevant, but also raising your hand. Like, just because you take 1 year break or you take a little break or that opportunity is not interesting to you, doesn't mean you'll be passed up for future opportunities. And I think it's really important to also raise your hand and say, hey, I'm looking for opportunities that will give me this experience or this type of leadership or this type of opportunity that I've never done before, and I really want to learn and grow.
That's fantastic. Thank you again for that. And a great wrap up. Yeah. Again, for our audience, this will be available on our District 3 YouTube channel, probably in about a week. So we'll go ahead. For those that have registered, we'll send out an email to let you know. For those who didn't register and you just jumped in, thanks for jumping in. Go check out our YouTube channel, and the playlist is Lunch and Learn. We have done this all year long just to share information, insights, things that we've picked up along the way that we would like to share with our audience. So thank you again for coming. And Sara, thanks for a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it. Love the presentation that you had. This was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. And thank you for facilitating and all your great questions. Love the energy you bring to every conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you. And we'll see you again soon.